The manga begins at the office of the academic director, where Director W. King asks the protagonist to sign his school withdrawal. Visibly irritated, Director W slams the table as he hands over the form, leaving Liang indignant. Liang, a student from Class 12, accuses Director W of hypocrisy, reminding him how in the past he begged Liang to join the college, but now he is acting completely differently. Slamming the table, Director W responds that Liang's third place in the city rank 3 years ago guaranteed his admission, but now he has changed. Speaking in a severe tone, Director W highlights that Liang's illness caused him to plummet from the top of the ranking to the bottom positions for months. Although Director W's words are not completely false, since Liang did indeed faint suddenly one day without warning. Since then, Liang lives in a confused state, frequently falling asleep and losing his reputation as the best student. Director W expels Liang from his office, slamming the door behind him and declaring that expulsion isn't inevitable. Clenching his fists in frustration, Liang trembles as Shan Mengtong, a concerned classmate, approaches and asks if he is all right. Forcing a tense smile, Liang reassures Mengtong that he is fine and asks why she was looking for him. Mengtong offers him a large notebook, explaining that it is her personal study guide and expresses her willingness to help him with the subjects. Surprised by the gesture, Liang sarcastically asks if she thinks he has fallen so low that he now needs free lessons. Mengtong tries to defend her intentions, but Liang walks away angrily, saying that he doesn't need anyone's pity or charity. As his emotions intensify, the system inside him starts to activate, reaching an impressive synchronization of 85%. Still boiling with anger, Liang goes to his classroom, sits at his desk and tries to calm his emotions. Golan, a classmate, approaches with an ironic smile, mockingly asking if the former model student is about to be expelled. Golan's provocations continue as he ridicules Liang, highlighting his fall from grace. Ignoring the comments, Liang lowers his head onto the desk, choosing not to respond. However, other students join in the laughter, labeling Liang as pathetic and miserable. Hearing the laughter, Liang wonders if this will be his life from now on. And that's the story we'll see today. Don't forget to leave your like on the video, and of course, subscribe to the channel. We post videos every day, and I'm sure you don't want to miss any. So subscribe now, and let's dive into the story. The rising tide of emotions accelerates the system's connection with Liang, jumps from 87% to 96% until it finally reaches 100%. The system successfully connects with Liang, initiating the Omniscient Study God program with overwhelming force. The insults from his classmates fuel Liang, flooding his mind with superhuman knowledge, advanced formulas, and complex equations. His head feels lighter despite the immense flow of knowledge, as if his brain is expanding. The sensation is surreal, as if he is in front of Newton himself, emanating an aura of arrogance. Overcome with joy, Liang abruptly stands up, celebrating that he is completely recovered. His unexpected behavior provokes laughter from his classmates, who mock him for his apparent delirious outburst. Golan ridicules Liang loudly, claiming he must be dreaming of returning to the top. Xiaohing, the class teacher, bangs a file on the desk to silence the class and orders Golan to distribute the tests. Liang then boldly raises his hand, asking Ms. Xia if he can challenge Golan based on the results of the next test. Golan, mocking Liang for daydreaming, is challenged to accept the duel if he is confident. Smiling arrogantly, Golan agrees and declares that the loser must become the servant of the winner. Ms. Xia, clearly irritated, tells them to focus on the test instead of engaging in childish arguments. Liang, unfazed, insists that it is just a friendly competition driven by shared enthusiasm for learning. After a moment of reflection, Ms. Xia allows the challenge, adding that she will grade the tests immediately after completion. Both Liang and Golan prepare with evident determination for the test battle. Golan, overflowing with confidence as the class representative for biology, believes he will easily defeat Liang. Glancing at Liang, Golan notices him sitting with his eyes closed and assumes he has already given up. When the clock marks the last 3 minutes, Golan feels secure in his victory. Suddenly, Liang grabs his pen and starts writing furiously, his hand moving at an impressive speed. Surprised by this unexpected turn, Golan wonders what Liang could be trying to achieve so late in the test. In the remaining 3 minutes, Liang writes non-stop as Ms. Xia begins the countdown from 10. After a few moments, Ms. Xia announces that Golan scored 93 points with only minor errors in the writing section. The class cheers enthusiastically, and Golan delights in the praise from his classmates, confident that he has won. Turning to Liang with an arrogant smile, Golan orders him to call him master from now on. However, Ms. Xia announces Liang's score loudly, 99 points, an undeniable victory. The class falls into absolute silence, and Golan, unable to process his defeat, shouts that it's impossible for Liang to have beaten him. Not accepting his defeat, Golan points a finger at Liang, accusing him of cheating. With a confident smile, Liang tells Golan to admit his defeat like a man, which makes him furious. Golan clenches his fist, ready to punch Liang. However, Ms. Xia's sharp voice cuts through, warning Golan not to start a fight. In a firm tone, she reminds everyone that the whole class was watching Liang, making it impossible for him to have cheated. At that moment, the school bell rings, signaling the end of classes, and Liang casually leaves the classroom, heading toward the bathroom. Before leaving, he slightly turns his head and arrogantly reminds Golan to call him master as promised. Feeling completely humiliated, Golan bows his head in shame, kneeling on the floor. The other students laugh and encourage Golan to keep his word and call Liang master, making him even more embarrassed. Meanwhile, outside the classroom, Liang savors the moment, finally satisfied with his revenge. The system appears before Liang and informs him that his current talent is just the beginning of what he can achieve. The system further explains that Liang must complete designated tasks to earn study coins, level up, and become the #1 academic god in the world. Unimpressed by the system's dramatic entrance, Liang questions why the reward is only 10 study coins. Annoyed by Liang's attitude, the system warns him that success requires his own effort, or he risks returning to his previous state of failure. Realizing the truth in the system's words, Liang promises to work hard and do whatever it takes to become the true academic god. Determined, he starts running toward Professor Zong's office, planning to request the reinstatement of his eligibility for the Grand Plan. The Grand Plan is a prestigious school scholarship program offering 100,000 yuan and guaranteed admission to Suwang University for the top 3 students. Praising Liang's initiative, the system assigns him a challenge. Convince Professor Zong to allow him to compete for the Grand Plan, or lose his connection to the system forever. Shortly afterward, Liang arrives in front of a classroom and places his hand on the doorknob. Pushing the door open, Liang enters with firm steps, ready to reclaim the glory he once lost. Inside the laboratory, biology teacher Ming Tong notices Liang's presence and asks why he came there. With confidence, Liang declares that he is there to sign up for the competition for the 3 coveted spots in the Grand Plan. A boy mocks Liang, suggesting he apply for a janitor job in the laboratory. The boy, named Lu Su, is the top student in the school. Adjusting his glasses, Liang tells Professor Zong that although his return is unexpected, the competition is full of students far superior to him. Liang points to the blackboard with a difficult mathematical equation and questions why students who can't solve it are considered worthy of the Grand Plan. A bald student with crossed arms challenges Liang to solve the equation in an hour. Lu Su intervenes, mocking and suggesting Liang solve basic addition and subtraction instead. Unfazed by the insults, Liang confidently states that the solution to the problem is 1426. Both the bald student and Lu Su are astonished, knowing very well that Liang's answer is correct. Smiling slyly, Liang claims he solved the equation using mental calculation, further surprising the audience. Visibly impressed, Professor Zong asks Liang if he is completely recovered. Liang confirms with renewed enthusiasm. Professor Zong searches through some papers and hands Liang a test package, asking him to solve it. Meanwhile, Lu Su's expression darkens as he silently curses. Grabbing a pen, Liang dives into the test, solving it well in front of the perplexed spectators. To everyone's amazement, Liang finishes the entire test in just 15 minutes and confidently declares that he is done. Reviewing the papers, Professor Zong is astonished not only by Liang's speed but also by his accuracy. Liang points out that question 19 doesn't have a correct answer, stating that the true solution should be 3678. Lu Su contests Liang's assertion, insisting that the correct answer is option D and accusing him of making things up. Unfazed, Liang challenges Lu Su to calculate the answer himself if he is so sure he is correct. Irritated, Lu Su hands Liang a piece of chalk and challenges him to prove his answer on the blackboard. The bald student joins in the taunt, pressing Liang to solve the question or leave the laboratory immediately. Even Professor Zong shows curiosity, encouraging Liang to present his solution for everyone to see. Meng Tong observes from the side, wondering if Liang has really regained his former brilliance. Determined, Liang approaches the blackboard and begins solving the problem. His movements are quick and precise, and Professor Zong watches with admiration, marveling at the ease with which Liang works as if he had multiple hands. Lu Su and Meng Tong are equally shocked, while Meng Tong gets emotional seeing Liang regain his confidence. The other students observe in silence, impressed by Liang's unparalleled skill, comparing him to a divine figure. Finally, Liang completes the solution with his forehead slightly sweaty from the intense focus and swift movements. Professor Zong, completely impressed, declares that Liang's solution is impeccable and entirely correct. With renewed confidence, Professor Zong assures Liang that his talent guarantees one of the 3 spots in the grand plan. Meanwhile, Lu Su's face contorts with jealousy as he silently wishes for Liang's downfall. Professor Zong emphasizes that there are only 3 weeks left for the grand plan and suggests that Liang work even harder to prepare. He also offers Liang individual tutorials since he hasn't officially registered for the training sessions yet. Meanwhile, Lu Su remains furious at being outdone by Liang. Frustrated, he sends a message to someone, swearing to expose and bring Liang down. Meng Tong notices Lu Su on his cell phone and curiously asks what he is doing, causing Lu Su to panic and turn off the device. Professor Zong begins searching the bookshelf for study materials for Liang to prepare for the biology competition. Suddenly, Director Qin bursts into the room with 2 guards, ordering them to drag Liang out immediately. The guards approach, following the order to remove him from the school premises. Liang, remaining calm, points out that he hasn't signed any resignation letter and therefore has every right to stay and participate in the grand plan. Observing the scene, Lu Su smiles slightly and points an accusing finger. Director Qin declares that Liang is a cheater who deceived teachers and classmates, justifying his expulsion. Professor Zong steps forward to defend Liang, stating that the accusations are unfounded. Director Qin turns to Professor Zong and warns him not to protect a supposed cheater. Furious, Liang watches as Professor Zong throws the test papers to the floor, shouting that he is not defending Liang. Director Qin ignores Professor Zong's words, claiming to have concrete evidence, and orders the guards to remove Liang. As he is being taken away, Liang shouts that he is innocent, pleading with the system for help and claiming that he is being framed. The system responds coldly, stating that it cannot interfere but reminds Liang to claim his previous task reward. Liang quickly accepts the reward called self-cultivation, which he initially found strange. As the guards drag him closer to the door, Liang decides to use his new ability without hesitation. Breaking free from the guard's grip, Liang falls to his knees and looks up at the ceiling, desperately calling out. In a moving performance, he laments that his parents sacrificed everything, even basic necessities, to pay for his education. Channeling pure emotion, Liang compares his parents' hard work under the scorching sun to endless suffering that he cannot repay. His emotional cries fill the room with an air of tragedy as he apologizes to his ancestors for disappointing them. Tears stream down his face, adding an authentic layer to his acting that leaves everyone in the room astonished. Meng Tong, visibly moved, places a comforting hand on Liang's shoulder and asks him to stop crying, expressing her belief in his innocence. Meng Tong appeals to the others, and soon Professor Zong and the rest of the class, all in tears, declare their trust in Liang. Even Lu Su, who despised Liang, breaks down, shedding bitter tears against his will. Director Kin, struggling to contain his emotions, starts to sniffle, his face reddened with feeling. Although Liang appears desolate, he secretly celebrates the success of his ability with a touch of satisfaction. Seizing the moment, he declares that his only wish is to see his parents smile, regardless of himself. This statement moves the crowd even more, whose cries grow louder and fill the room. Director Kin, despite his resistance, cannot stop tears from streaming down his face. Concluding his performance, Liang boldly suggests bringing the accuser forward and resolving the matter in the director's office. He challenges Director Kin to present the ballet, Swan Maiden, if Liang proves he didn't cheat. Professor Zong points out Lu Su as the informant and insists he accompany them to the director's office. Looking visibly guilty, Lu Su hesitates and tries to avoid the situation, but Professor Zong and Meng Tong confront him, accusing him of saying Liang cheated with a cell phone. Maintaining his composure, Liang challenges Lu Su to go to the director's office if he is confident in his accusations. Reluctantly, Lu Su agrees, shouting that he will face the director personally. Shortly afterward, in the director's office, Liang stands at the desk, prepared to solve a problem under the director's watchful eye. Grabbing a pen, Liang confidently states that he needs only 3 minutes to solve the issue. Director Kin interrupts, arguing that allowing Liang to retake the test is unfair since he has been labeled a cheater. The director questions Director Kin's insistence, suggesting that he might fear Liang solving the problem, which Director Kin denies. After 2 minutes, Liang proudly announces that he has completed the task and hands it to the director. As the director and other staff members review Liang's solution, Lu Su mocks, claiming he must have guessed. Moments later, the director declares that Liang's answer is completely correct. Lu Su and Director King look incredulous, and Director King quickly accuses Liang of cheating. Dramatically, Director King claims to have discovered evidence of Liang's supposed cheating. He asserts this, and the director asks for the evidence. Director King confidently states that Liang must have used an online trick to cheat. Liang questions what he could have seen online and asks if Director King is implying that he himself leaked the questions. Stammering, Director King denies it and tries to shift the blame, accusing another teacher of possibly helping Liang. Angrily, the director firmly orders Director King to stop with the baseless accusations unless he has concrete proof. Desperate, Director King turns to Lu Su and demands evidence, but Lu Su claims he only heard the accusation from Golan. Seizing the moment, Liang asks Lu Su if he had any real suspicion or if he blindly believed Golan's words. Lu Su retorts that Liang slept for 3 months and suddenly became a genius, which inevitably raises doubts. Hearing this, Liang smiles as if he had been waiting for Lu Su to say exactly that. Pointing at Liang, Lu Su accuses him of being nervous and suggests he has some hidden method of cheating. Suddenly, Liang's eyes fill with tears as he activates his performance, lamenting how he disappointed everyone during his 3 years of deep sleep. Professor Zong, also emotional, tells Liang not to dwell on the past. Trembling, Liang insists on explaining how he solved each exam question. Impressed, the school director encourages him to continue and share his methods. Smiling sarcastically, Director King scoffs at the idea, stating that someone who slept for 3 months couldn't explain anything. Liang boldly claims to have 5 methods to solve the problem, leaving everyone in the room perplexed by his confidence. Taking off his coat and spreading papers around as he prepares to share his knowledge, he begins with his first method, detailing how evolved trees show the progression of species. He then explains the second method, homoplasy, where species share traits without a common ancestor. He continues elaborating on the third method, involving derived traits in evolutionary trees, and vaguely describes the fourth and fifth methods as extensions. His explanation sounds like divine wisdom to the director and Lu Su, who are completely captivated by Liang's brilliance. Meanwhile, Director King feels dehumanized, comparing himself to an insignificant animal. With a sigh of relief, Liang rejoices in his triumph, while everyone around is reduced to an emotional state. The director offers Liang a cloth to wipe his sweat and declares that the school's future now rests on his capable shoulders. While the director praises Liang, Director Kin tries to sneak out of the room, hoping to escape unnoticed. But Liang catches him mid-step and mischievously reminds him of the condition to perform the ballet. Moments later, an announcement echoes through the school speakers, inviting everyone to watch a ballet performance. The students gather in the courtyard, bursting into laughter as Director Kin climbs onto the stage in an ill-fitting ballet outfit. Awkwardly, Director Kin performs the Four Little Swans ballet to everyone's amusement. The students roar with laughter, some even recording the scene to ensure the humiliation lasts forever. Furious, Director Kin silently vows to make Liang pay for this disgrace. In the middle of the performance, his legs get tangled and he falls face first onto the stage, triggering another wave of endless laughter. Golan rushes to help him up, but Director Kin furiously blames Golan for the disaster and assigns him a 5,000-word reflective essay. Observing from the upper floor, Liang calls the system, which congratulates him for completing a hidden mission, the mission to humiliate Director Kin. Liang is rewarded with 10 study coins and unlocks the luxury lottery feature. However, the scene becomes extremely silent. Instead of his parents, he sees a table full of food. Faint voices come from their room, and peeking inside, Liang hears his parents lamenting their financial difficulties in supporting him during his 3 months of deep sleep. His father, hugging his mother, promises to bear all the burdens and ensure Liang gets the education he deserves. Touched by their sacrifice, Liang silently vows to create a better life for his family, resolving to repay their hardships. In his room, Liang invokes the system and asks to spin the lottery wheel he previously unlocked. Shocked by the high cost of spins, Liang calls the system a scam, only to be sharply reminded to appreciate the free spin he received. Grumbling about his luck, Liang places his hand on the wheel and watches it spin again. The wheel finally lands on the intermediate treasure evaluation skill, which surprisingly also grants him the ultimate treasure evaluation skill. Liang heads to the antique street with one mission in mind: make money, and make even more money. Jokingly, he says that if there were another objective, it would still be to make money. While examining the shops, he notices they all look identical, so he decides to try his luck in one of them at random. At that moment, he spots the director of the school arguing with a mustached shopkeeper who demands 255 yuan for a supposedly broken antique. The director tries to defend himself, insisting he didn't break anything, but the shopkeeper accuses him of being responsible. The shopkeeper raises his voice, questioning who else could have broken the object and threatens to call the police if the director refuses to pay. The director looks nervous, knowing that being arrested would tarnish his reputation and harm the school. Observing the heated discussion, Liang boldly enters the store, asking the shopkeeper if falsely accusing others is a regular habit. Surprised to see Liang in the market, the director asks what he is doing there, but Liang diverts his attention, stating that the artifact is worth only 51 yuan. The shopkeeper mocks Liang's claim, assuring him that he doesn't sell fake items and warns him not to spread lies. Ignoring the warning, Liang confidently declares to the director that the artifact is undeniably fake. Kneeling down, Liang examines the fragments of the supposedly priceless artifact with a sharp eye. He activates the treasure identification mode, enhancing his ability to evaluate the authenticity of the broken pieces. Picking up a fragment, he carefully lowers it into a bowl of water on the shop's table, allowing it to absorb the liquid. Within seconds, the surface of the fragment begins to peel, revealing a rusty black layer, exposing the artifact as fake. Caught red-handed, the nervous shopkeeper claims that he was also deceived by the person who sold it to him. Visibly relieved, the director exclaims that if it weren't for Liang's intervention, he would have lost all his savings. As murmurs of agreement spread among the onlookers, the shopkeeper panics and tries to flee. However, his escape is thwarted when he runs into 2 imposing police officers at the entrance. The officers explain that they received a report about counterfeit items being sold in the area and came to investigate. Raising his hand, Liang offers additional information, requesting a thorough investigation. He boldly declares that all the items in the shop are counterfeit and insists on a complete investigation. Realizing his business is ruined, the shopkeeper collapses in defeat while one of the officers calls for backup. The director, now confident of the fraud, expresses his deep gratitude to Liang, who humbly says he only did what he thought was right. The director then asks if Liang is just out for a weekend stroll, but Liang explains that he is looking for old jade stones. Hearing this, the director recommends that Liang visit the renowned Feng Ting Pavilion further down the street. Accepting the suggestion, Liang heads to the pavilion, where the vibrant space is filled with a crowd of buyers and sellers. Spotting a stall advertising special discounts, Liang approaches to see if he can discover any valuable treasure using his supreme treasure identification skill. Liang quickly identifies a seemingly worthless stone with immense potential. Holding the stone, he asks the shopkeeper to cut it to confirm its value. The shopkeeper questions Liang's choice, pointing out the stone's low quality, but Liang insists firmly. And we'll see it in the next episode. Remember to subscribe and leave a like.